Hello, I'm Ian Scales, you're watching TelecomTV, and we're covering Smart IoT London, here in London. And I'm talking first with Robin Duke-Woolley, who is the CEO of Beecham Research. Robin, welcome.
Great to see you, Ian.
Okay, well, we've been together a long time on IoT. Before it was called IoT,
Indeed.
It was called M2M.
Yes.
And now things have... so before we start, give us a quick rundown. How have things changed over the many years that you've been following this?
Okay, well, so we started looking at this area in 2001, so 15 years ago. And in those days, it was very like single activities, single operations. There was lots of talk about vending machines, which never really quite took off. But there was lots of individual small applications out there, a lot of diversity, as there is now. But what's happened over the years is, of course, much greater volume, much greater sophistication in the types of applications that are out there. And the move to IoT is really taking it from like a single process, a single enterprise process, towards using multiple sources of information to create new solutions. So that's really where it starts to get more complex, much more data around. And that's what everybody's excited about, is what that means in terms of the infrastructure and the service opportunities that can come out of that.
Now, a few months back, you kind of took stock of what was going on, and you issued a report called Get Real. You know, the
Yes.
numbers are too high. And I suppose that links back to what you're saying, really. You've seen this take off. Do you think people have got over-enthusiastic about the numbers, particularly?
Well, I think that that always tends to happen in a relatively new area. When you've got a lot of new market players entering the market, they latch on to some quite expansive numbers, shall we say. And I think that there is a need to take a bit of a rain check on some of them. They're, while it's exciting to talk about big numbers, it's not very realistic, because the marketplace has been growing at the rate of sort of 20–30% per annum in terms of new connections. We're not going to see sort of 100% plus growth per annum in connections over the next few years. There's no particular reason why we should. So this talk of multi-billions of connections by 2020 in particular, sort of 20 million connections, 20 billion connections by 2020, they're just not going to come from anywhere. So I think that people need to understand it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But that still means that there's a fantastic opportunity out there, and we all need to sort of build towards that, but we need to take stock, and we need to think about return on investment. We need to think about our bottom lines. We need to think about making sure that we make a living before we get to 2020.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask you more about that, which is, I suppose, we keep looking at the technologies as technologies, don't we? But actually, the implementation of IoT is slightly different. It's about the deployment costs and so on, not just the specific technologies. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, indeed. Well, it's the deployment costs, and it's also the uses that people want to use as applications. One of the real problems, I think, is that we in the industry get very excited about new technologies. We don't. And we start to talk about the differences between the technologies and so forth, but the user isn't really interested in any of that. What he's interested in is the application. And I think that we need to spend more time thinking about the new application areas that can come out of IoT, and then match the application requirements with the technology capabilities, certainly, but I think we probably need to simplify it a little bit and turn it into the service capabilities, right. Particularly. Yeah.
To sort of abstract it as a service, and then try and, it's like a horses for courses thing, isn't it?
It is.
You try and match up what the requirement is with the technologies, rather than trying to get all the requirements, shoehorned into one small set of technologies.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what we're facing in the future is a whole new area of applications out there that have not really been explored before. We need people to think about what those sorts of applications might be. There's high data rate applications, there's very low data rate applications, and there's a whole forest of opportunities out there which different technologies can address. And we need to think about the services that are going to be required to support those, to enable those applications. And there really isn't enough going on in that at the moment, in my view.
So there's not enough diversity of services.
No, I think that particularly when it comes to connectivity, we've all got very used to talking about cellular, and we've all got used to talking about fairly high data rates. But now we have the low power wide area part of the market, which is very, very low data rates. And we need to start thinking about the applications that can come about from those types of technologies, and in particular the services that are becoming available to support those applications in the marketplace.
What do you think is not being addressed in terms of those variables that we were talking about before? What end of the spectrum needs more work?
Well, I think it is the low power wide area bit, actually. I think that there are a number of technologies there. It has been speculated that there's going to be a sorting out of those technologies, that there's going to be less. I think that's a little bit premature. I think that we are at the very front end of looking at a whole range of low data rate applications that will become more exciting over time and more diverse over time, and open up a whole new range of opportunities. And that's where these technologies are really aimed. But we don't have, I think, quite the tools for the users to sort out which technology they should use for which application. So as a result, we get into a bit of a technology discussion which they're not interested in, and we don't spend enough time talking about the applications. Now, I think that we need to turn that around a little bit, and I think that we need to talk about the applications. Yes, we need to explore what the applications can be at this very low data rate end of the marketplace. Do they actually replace some of the higher data rate applications, or do they complement those? And in a lot of cases, we're finding that they actually complement them. So it adds to the richness of the experience of IoT. It's not replacing one with the other. I think that there's huge opportunities for that. But then you come to, well, so this is the application that I want. Now, how do I implement it? And again, people really are not interested in the technologies. What they're interested in is a service that they can use to support the application that they're looking for.
Now,
so I think that's really important.
You've, I understand that you're doing a report at the moment, or you're just about to complete a report, actually.
Right.
In fact, you're going to rush off and do it after we finish speaking.
Indeed.
So what you're talking about there is very interesting, because it seems to me that there's a lack of, it's a semantic problem in a way. There's not an easy way of explaining that range of application needs, from one end to the other. Perhaps that's something you're going to be looking at with your report, a way of categorizing them easily.
Indeed, and categorizing is exactly the point. So what we need to look at is categories of service attributes, and then compare those with the application requirements. And we think that we can do that, we collectively, the market, can do that in a relatively easy way. But we need to have a discussion around that, and we need to explore the ways of doing that. So the report that you refer to, that is coming out, well, very shortly, is really the first stage, we think, to look at that and to explore what those opportunities are, to make it easier for the user to pick up these applications and make them work.
Yeah.
And if we do that, I think that will help to develop the overall marketplace in this very low data rate area of the market. So it takes us away from a technology fight, basically, which is, I think, unproductive, and much more towards being innovative about the types of applications that are out there, and then matching those to what service requirements are needed for making them work.
Okay, that's great. Well, if you're interested in Robin's report, we'll put the URL right underneath the screen here, and that should be out late April, I believe.
It is, yes.
Okay, Robin, thank you very much. That was very interesting.
That's great, thanks.